at any point in time, regardless of the government in power, there will be major ethnic groups that will still be against the government. Because a lot of the elections are backed by ethnic votes. Right? And so you can't even tell that the president is so unpopular just based on agitations or protests.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Shaft podcast. My name is Andrews and I'll be your host for today. On this episode, we'll talk about something relating to elections. I mean, it's election season for most countries in the world, so it's good we have these conversations. But what we would narrow in on today is really what the media does leading up to elections and how it influences our expectations, our perceptions around government policy implementations, delivering of promises, and whether or not that seems to create much more deep-seated apathy within people after they realize certain things that governments do. Here with me on this episode is Boakye Isaac, popularly known as BNI. He's been a mentor for a very long time. Also has a very solid background in media information, research. Very, very opinionated on politics as well. And it's very good that we are here with him. If there's anyone you want to have conversations around in terms of the political landscape of Ghana and around Africa and around the world, I think he's one of the good people because he's very informed around history, politics, global issues. BNI, this is like your fourth time on the podcast.
Godfather would have been shorter.
No, I want people to know the caliber of the person I'm coming to speak to.
Yeah.
Godfather seems too brief.
So I think this is my third time actually on the podcast because the first one we split it up into different interviews. But yes, it's always good to see you in person. I think last time I saw you was in Zambia.
Yeah, it was in Zambia. Yeah. This would, like, Erasmus would wish he's the one here. he would tell me I'm taking the enjoyment he would wish to.
Well, I would wish to be the one in UK.
But I'm sure he'll be down for Accra Open. So obviously when he comes around,
and I mean, one brilliant part of Accra Open that we are working towards this year is the Accra dialogues. Because just as you want us to have this conversation, there are other conversations that we want to have. And this year we are setting it around the youth bulge. You know, whether it's Path to Prosperity or Pitfalls, and how we can work. So we have an amazing lineup of speakers, and it's going to be at the British Council on 23rd August. So it's.
Like it's sad I'm missing a crowd because the dates don't favor me.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
Corporate life is not fun. but yeah, I mean to kickstart the conversation, like the media has grown into what people call the fourth arm of government as a very influential part of state governance because they do not just serve as information carriers to us the people, but also more like watchdogs. And the way in which we trust them seems to mean that we take what they say probably with less critique than what people in power and politicians say. And therefore, we believe in them, their narratives and the trends that they set inform the way in which we view things within the state. Like, I listen to maybe Bernard Avle, I listen to some of the top media personalities in Ghana, and then I conclude on what I think is happening in the country because, obviously, I expect them to know what's happening and inform me about it. But what I've seen recently is the way in which they place narratives on elections. They tend to tell people that there's a cycle in which you have the opportunity to determine the prosperity, the next cycle of prosperity you want to live in. Obviously, the media drums home a lot about the things that are going bad in the country and why you are there to determine, for instance, the next promised land carrier who is going to lead you to that flourishing state. And they give us narratives that we should buy into to probably help us believe in democracy. My question is that thing that they do to try and give us trust in the system eventually undermining the very system? Because it looks like people go into voting with a very high barrier of expectation. Governments deliver and they sort of fall short and people say, well, maybe we should go out of democracy altogether. And those conversations have started gaining momentum. Some people say, oh, let's return back to colonial rule. Some people say, let's return back to military rule. Yeah, like...
That's the crowd that enjoys it.
So I'm asking how negative these trends we see in elections within the media could be for us. Yeah.
Well, that was a long question, but maybe we have to take a few steps back.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things Chappelle said when he was questioned about Trump as to whether Trump is divisive,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things he said, and I think it applies to the Ghanaian media a lot. I think the Ghanaian media, they can't be credited for these lofty things you talk about.
Okay.
I think they are just playing people's greatest hits. So the people want a promised land.
Yeah.
The people want simple answers.
Yeah.
It's fancier for the people when they say that fuel is 15 cedis a litre, vote the government out. It's fancier for the people when they say, oh, the government is corrupt, vote them out. Because, I mean, is the kind of solutions that also when people are high, people would like, because, so, for example, a lot of Trump's ideas.
Yeah.
So if there are people who are sitting down and are high, and they have people coming into their space, probably a high person will say, let's build a wall. And so that's a policy proposal from Trump.
Yeah.
But the media, with all the credits that we give them, obviously means we expect more from the media. And especially in today's world, that conversation is very difficult to have because it's very difficult to know where traditional media stops and where social media begins.
Yeah.
And in this era of mediated information, you really wonder what is considered original thinking. So if even you believe something, when we were coming, I was asking my driving mate, I was asking about what, like platforms. When she listens to a platform, does she automatically trust them? And like what information? And one thing she mentioned was she likes to know the platform she's listening to before she determines how to take that information. Okay. And a lot of people today, so over the past few days, there have been a lot of issues in Ghana. The LI that was giving parliamentarians and other persons the rights to use sirens and also ignore speed limits and all that. Today's world or Ghana, it is more likely that people would hear Olele Salvador's position before they hear Kwame Sefa-Kain's position.
Yeah.
And so it makes you think, who are the media today and who are those shaping thoughts today? Because trust me, a lot of people get their news from Kojo Sheldon.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And now, the Shaft podcast, as it gets bigger, you are going to shape thoughts. Yeah. Right? So it just puts it out there that there is a big responsibility on what we call media today.
Yeah.
To do more in terms of helping people come to answers. And that's where I think we've lost the plot because you expect media to do that shaping.
Okay.
Rather than helping people come to answers themselves. Okay. We expect the media to provide the answers in the vast number of instances, and that is a very big problem. So I know that your question is very broad, but that is how I want us to imagine the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting perspective, but it highlights the issue of perhaps why people now want to rely on the media to shape their perspectives rather than them going like information hunting to shape their own. Probably what you would call overload, information overload in the world. Like you said, social media, you Google a thing today and like you have tons of articles, tons of sources. You don't know which one is correct.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of them which are also conflicting in exactly the information you are getting. So we tend to try and rely on people who will term experts of information, which is people within the media landscape, to come sift through the information and come and tell us. I presume if anyone had published the amendments that were being proposed in the laws and said people should read through, 99.999% of people would not read to the point where they even catch that there is a proposition for certain LIs to be changed.
Yeah.
Right? So is that dependency, I'm saying that dependency is also probably rooted in the information overload that we have. And do you think that's one that we need to start looking at curbing, or is it fine in a world where we try to pump information to people as much as we can?
Yeah, so I think that's a very important thing. So probably formerly, knowledge was key.
Yeah.
In this era, and clarity is key.
Yeah, clarity
because
is key.
the ability to sift through all this information and pick out what should actually, lead to answers. Because the idea is to put up a lot of changes that we've wanted over the years.
Yeah.
And then they take it to a subcommittee and somebody says, this thing, we should put it in there.
Yeah.
You get it. And so it also makes us miss all the other important stuff that we could have been discussing. But especially when you look at all the outrage, it also points to the fact that the media, all over the years, traditional and both like social media, we are getting to the point where everybody seems very anti-system.
Yeah.
Even though the voting says otherwise, because in the end people still vote for the same options. But even for those who vote for the same options, there are a lot of issues where people disagree and seem very anti-system about, So sometimes it makes me wonder how people pick up the issues they want to be anti-system about, and then they want to say, okay, it's election time, let me put on my political party jersey and just simply go and line up for a vote. Or in certain instances, it's an ethnic census. And so it's time for elections. Let me go and line up between the regular people I vote with and then go for, a vote. So these things are true. But what does the media do? The media wants to ensure that they put out the information and they highlight the points that are important to them. I think after the Trump assassination attempt, there was a meme of CNN reporting the assassination of Julius Caesar. And the headline was, Caesar dies after hug with friends. Because the friends tried to hug him and then some stabbed him. Yeah. And it tells you how the media can shape the information. And so for Ghana, if we want to look at how the media either creates these expectations, then we also have to go back to, especially traditional media ownership.
Yeah.
For as long as you can tell, GBC has always had almost the same workers.
Yeah.
But almost every 8 years, it seems they are completely different stations as far as their political reporting is concerned.
Yeah.
And so even with that public institution, ownership is a key question. Multimedia, city, there are always allegations as to whether the ownership influences editorial policy.
Yeah.
Because depending on who is in government, then the media organizations sing certain songs.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even so much as the media organization changing completely, as it is the reporters and presenters themselves also changing, and also mediating the kind of information that you get. So one of the popular stations, it looks like in the morning is for, one political party. In the evening, it is another political party. I'm sure people can pick out,
obviously.
So, and is owned by somebody who is an entrepreneur and plays to both political parties, So it tells you that media ownership plays a very big role as far as we are concerned. And that determines the kind of information that is put out there, the kind of interest. Yeah. And that's why even with respect to, and the media has that power, with respect to the recent issues on, let me pick maybe sale of SNIT hotels. You'd realize that the kind of attention it got in the media played a very big role as to why that issue came to the forefront, of all other issues that have, or scandals that have come up. So who decides what is the main story?
Yeah.
Also decides what you think.
That's like the scariest part of how powerful the media is, without anybody giving them that power, like anybody checking that power. You can't vote them out, you can't kick them out of office or anything. Is that, like you said, at one point they decide the SNIT issue is the most important.
Yep.
In a different world, in an alternate world, they could say, we don't care. And it wouldn't gain as much popularity. This LI issue, they would have said, we don't care, it's not a big issue.
Yeah.
And so it's like they have the power to select and deselect what the people should care about and drum home the noise in the ears of the people. And given that amount of power, it's so difficult to know what exactly they are doing and who checks them. Also because state influence in media is always viewed with a very critical eye, that you are silencing the media, you are undermining the media and all that. So this brings me to the next question for you is, given how powerful the media is and given the system we exist within, which it's so difficult to regulate them, are you creating a monster by giving them that much freedom?
we sometimes it's better to create a monster than out of the media than to create a monster out of the government.
Okay.
Because the government has almost all the power.
Yeah.
And so they shouldn't also be the ones who have the monster. But it comes back to the question. So I think Walter Cronkite, 80s, 70s, powerful media person.
Yeah.
And in the evening, almost everybody in America is listening to him. So the Iran hostage situation, where they have American students and workers held hostage in Iran.
Yeah.
And he keeps account every day before he gives the news, or when he's about to end, he says, it's been 300 and so days since Americans have been held hostage in Iran.
Yeah.
The government has been unable to do anything about it. That made it a big failure for the government.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of whatever Carter did, he was going to lose the election, because every evening it was in their face that the president has been unable to do anything about this issue.
Yeah.
You get it? And this is at a time where he's probably like the only news person.
Yeah.
It's just like Ghana in those days, where when we go to school on Monday, we are all going to talk about TV3 Mentor.
Yeah.
Because we had like 2 or 3 TV stations at the time, right? Yeah. And so that was all we had. That was all we could discuss. Now, if kids go to school on Monday, it's very difficult to tell what they can discuss, because there are so many options. Over 100 TV stations, Obinim, Opambo, Obofo, like so many options. Then like social media, TikTok, so now people will probably not be on the same page on a lot of things, because their experiences are different. So those issues also determine how today's world should be viewed. Do you get it? And when you look at the instance where these guys have a lot of power, so Walter Cronkite had a lot of power, news around the world, they called their newspaper all the news that can fit. So that meant if you picked up the newspaper, you were reading all the news that you thought. But today, I don't think any media organization can even attempt to say that our newspaper covers all the news that can fit. And so you think about, in those times, all the things that fit outside the box, what happened to them? All the issues that fall outside of the news, what happens to it? If we have 10 stories, but our news can only allow for us to do 4, who is making that decision? And that's why sometimes when I have a conversation with Karim about the media, and we agree on that point a lot, sometimes you can't blame them too much, because, for example, it costs so much to maybe get a law degree in this country, or it costs so much to become a medical doctor. In US, CNN may be able to pay Richard Quest so much, right? So he's excellent. He will do so much good in the world of business. But how many media houses can pay that much quality for a lawyer to review their stories and say, this is a story we can speak to, and so we are going to do it? So what is most likely going to happen is that we are going to end up with the low-hanging fruits that people can discuss, the most basic stories that the public can interact with. Because even for the people making the decision that let's put this out there, that is what they can ask about. The only time they are forced to deal with other topics is because they have no other options. But given the easy option, they'll go for the one that they know their expertise, which may be basic, can speak to.
I mean, interesting. The conversation about political or partisan influence on the media has always come up. People have said, like, it's bad for politicians to own the media and all that. I seem to have a seemingly critical view on that, because I'm like, if the people reflect a certain political divide, why is it bad if the media landscape also reflects that political divide, or like a section of the media landscape reflects that political divide? Why do we want to live in a world in which no politician has any influence whatsoever on the media and seems to create this utopia where the media is all independent and all that. I don't know if you have a take on that, because I think it's leading to recently there was a big conversation on one of the TV stations about, I think one of the web pages changing ownership to an ownership that leans a certain political line. And a politician made a huge deal out of it. Ghanaians should no more trust that media house because they've changed ownership and all that.
Yeah, it's a very important point. But usually I think in Ghana we use good and bad for lack of better words. So yes, we don't agree, so it's bad.
Yeah.
It's because we don't have the language to understand the situation.
Yeah.
When politicians own media houses, for me, it's much more about declaration.
Okay.
Politicians, even businesses, because we tend to think it's only just, so most people would not have a problem if a politician or a pastor has a TV station or like a radio station that is projecting what they put out there. Yeah. We draw the line at politics. Yeah. But if you want to look at all these, then I think it comes out to what people should declare.
Okay.
People shouldn't be unseen hands behind media organizations, and then so we can know how we view that media. The content they are putting out, and the kind of trust people are willing to give to that media organization. So that's like the primary thing. Declare. We should know what you are. Yeah. Second thing is, and also it's probably because of our political party database system, we should simply be able to tell who is a registered party member. Do you get it? Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong with us knowing that Bernard Avle is an MPP or NDC card-bearing member. It helps us know the medium theories, because there's one idea that the medium is the message, right? The medium that you are putting the information through is the message. Yeah. So if somebody wants to put a message on Instagram, the approach is going to be very different from if they want to put it on Facebook. Yeah. Probably Facebook will be more text heavy. Yeah. Instagram, the person will be focused on using the necessary filters and all that. It tells you that the information is not the same anymore. Yeah. The medium has influenced the information, and that is how these media platforms should be treated. We should know who is mediating that information, all the hands it passes through to get to us. And so that is how I view that conversation. It's not simply black and white, bad or good. Yeah. It's really about what people should declare.
I mean, it's interesting as well, because if you look at it, all the media personnel who work in these private media corporations have political identities. They have vote, political backgrounds. They go and queue up and vote. Some of them even make presses out of voting. After they vote, they take a ballot, they take a picture and say, I went to vote, go and cast yours. But then if their political identity should come out today, people would use that as a premise to probably delegitimize their view on any other thing that they've spoken about. And this is a conversation I had on one of the previous episodes about the stark political divide, to the point where anybody who is seen as having a dissenting view is branded as that dissenting view because they are aligned to an opposing political party. And I think that's also what the media is trying to avoid. Yeah. Right? So that is extending to media ownership, to the point where without us knowing who is speaking, we still have to take credibility from what they are saying. I think what they are saying is, we know who is speaking, it's much better for us because we are much more able to align to the credibilities of what that person is speaking to.
But, just to chip in there, it's still cowardice if you don't want to admit it, but in the end we see you doing the same thing on the show. So you have a show. You think that if you declare that you're a card-bearing member of this political party, people will take your opinions with a pinch of salt. But you are comfortable hiding behind the cloak of neutrality to do whatever. For some, for example, they are neutral, but maybe your owner sits on your evening show. Let me not say morning show before somebody thinks I'm pointing to a particular station. Maybe your owner sits on your morning show, and anytime he sits on your morning show, your views are a lot more moderate. People have a right to know whether that presence of your owner affects your work and it influences you. People must understand Because maybe that day they are discussing the airline.
Yeah.
And your owner's presence, your owner may be a judge or your owner may be an MP. Your owner's presence would stop you from expressing your critical views. People must know. So the next day when your owner is not around and it is snit and you are passionate about it, we will know that this is why you are this way. All those points are very important in determining how people should take the information.
I was about to ask a question on social media, but let me ask this first. High expectations that we set for ourselves as citizens, or we are made to believe that the country would flourish. Like, the reason why it baffles my mind is if you look at people within the media who set these conversations and determine the topical issues in the country now, like a lot of these morning show hosts who set the pace for how the day is going to go, they know what is wrong with the country. They know the fundamental issues. They know what the next 3-4 years is likely to be for the state, what hard decisions government would have to take to get things right. Yet they would sit and preach an expectation that's in exact contradiction to what the reality is likely to be. I sit and think, are they contributing to the mess we are seeing with how much distrust, increasing distrust we are seeing between people and the democratic structures?
Definitely. I mean, they have a role to play. Politicians have probably the biggest role to play. Citizens have a role to play too. Yeah. But in setting the expectations, I go back to where we started from. They are playing the people's biggest hits. So let's talk about maybe free senior high school or banking sector reforms. So banking sector reforms cost us a lot of money, right? And you see it's because of bad actions and poor supervision that happened from past years, which led to this. The media has the power to shape the information or shape, people's thinking to understand that we could have had it worse if this had not come in.
Okay.
People would have lost monies, more people, a vast number of citizens, financial system collapse, everything. The media can do that. But the easier conversation is government should pay those who have been affected today.
Okay.
That's the easier conversation. Because the other conversation is just very hard to convince people about it.
Yeah.
You get it? Even the simplest of conversations, the recent, who is Ghana's greatest president conversation, the media's farming of it was to go around asking Ghanaians, between this and this, who is Ghana's greatest president? Rather than having the conversation as to whether we should even be celebrating any leader in the first place because of where we find ourselves. You get it? And other things as to the fact that maybe the conversation itself is a forced one and all that. So they end up choosing the easy part. And the other thing is that I don't think the media understands well enough. They like the power. They like the influence because that is the only reason a journalist would probably try to send you a story before they publish and say that maybe we can do something about this. If he didn't know the power he had, he wouldn't do that. But I don't think they understand enough how powerful they are.
Oh, okay.
Because if I know that as a journalist, my report can shape whether government is going to end up spending more. And so, for example, it speaks to this issue. Teacher and nursing training allowances. Current leader of opposition had a completely different view when he was in government. Allowances shouldn't be anymore, right? Then the election is hard. One of the major election results that was put out there was from University of Education, Winneba, where I think the then government had about 3 votes, and then the opposition MPP had about 3,000 something votes. That memory sticks forever in the mind of the former president, so much that I think it is one of the reasons he has changed his view. Do you get it? Without explaining why he has changed his view anyway, it's one of the reasons he has changed his view. But the continuous presence of maybe this extra 400 million cedis, I'm unsure whether it's cedis or dollars, but it's 400 million on our budget is something that has consequences.
Yeah, it does.
And the media consistently supporting the view that maybe the leader of opposition should change his mindset speaks to that. But it's like nobody wants to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Yeah.
But they will be willing to do it if the goose will not die before the next election. And so people don't see the consequence, a direct causation between their actions and the consequences.
Yeah.
And so they are willing to do it because it's a slow death.
Yeah.
So we keep on putting all these things into the public system, causing more division, causing more distrust of leadership and all that. And in the end, we face the consequence. But you won't be able to tell whether it is Bernard Avle or Ilile Salvador.
Yeah.
Because their actions is not very direct as far as the consequences are concerned.
That brings me to social media. We've seen the rise of lots of social media critiques, social media influencers, literally people who have made a journalistic career out of social media with zero journalism background. They report news and put personal opinions, but the citizenry's reception of it, because of the cult of personality that they have, is from an objective standpoint rather than this is just someone's lame personal opinion and we should take it as such. I don't know how much damage it's causing, but it seems to lead to a world where there is a lot of citizens who think, and especially if, for instance, we go to Twitter, for instance, there's a lot of people who express...
X formerly Twitter.
X, formerly Twitter. It's such a horrible name to think of as a social media platform.
Yeah, your X is now formerly Twitter. Yes.
Moving on. but it's like when you go there, the conversations on social media from X, formerly Twitter, you go to Instagram, you go to Facebook, is very, very negative around. If you want to judge the mood of the country on social media, you think the country is one of the most horrible places to be in because people are very, very disappointed in the things that are going on. And almost every single reporting of issues, like you say, especially on social media, is very sensationalized. Ralph will tell you, I bought Belacqua Active this price, and now it's this price. Therefore, the economy is very, very terrible. Somebody would say, pick something and use it to represent a reflection of things, rather than having a detailed discussion about what are the elements that have gotten into this. And people are taking that group think that's happening on social media and influencing the way in which they interact with the state. Is that also becoming a growing bubble that we need to start looking at how to break it down? Because if not, we might have anger from there start spilling over into the real life, but they might not be very well-based anger.
Yeah. So I think one of the things I said at the start is now we don't know where to draw the line between traditional media and then social media. Because we don't know whether social media sets the agenda and traditional media now picks it up.
Traditional media doesn't, social media picks it up.
But when it comes to social media, we are more likely in Plato's cave, where what we see is what we think may be the actual.
Yeah.
You get? Sometimes politicians downplay what social media does at their own cost anyway. But what we see looks like the reality, but may not be the case. And it all boils down to people who are willing to learn. So, for example, a lot of people don't know this, but Twitter has 2 algorithms that you can access. The chronological one, that simply just picks up tweets as they come up. Okay. And the one that tries to pick up the conversations. And so, for example, during the Fix the Country period, I had to switch in between the 2 options. And for more than 6 days, not a single tweet was about anything else than Fix the Country. But the other one, it showed Ghanaians were eating banku. It showed different things. It's algorithm. It's the same platform. But you can have a completely different experience. With different settings. And it's the same social media network. And so, recently I traveled somewhere, and throughout the period, where I was staying was a very red state. All the ads I saw on social media were on ensuring that government cuts taxes, ensuring that There's a national ban on abortion, ensuring that unions are dismembered. You know, that's because the algorithm is singing the greatest hits that those people can relate with. You know, so we are creating echo chambers, yes, but it is possible for people to curate their social media experiences.
Okay.
Every once in a while, you should delete your entire Google history, because once you've looked at something,
it starts
recommending all those options to you. But people have to know, because then you really get to think, what are people's actual positions? So for like Twitter, for example, or X, for example, I believe a lot of people see a tweet and go and read the comments before they form their opinion.
Yeah.
So, because for me, there are lots of issues I see, like, and the tweet was 2 minutes ago. I think nothing of it. 5 hours later, is the trending topic, and this is everybody's position on it. And there is hardly any contrasting views. And so you see somebody makes a contrasting view, he's being dragged or she's being dragged, and somebody tweets somewhere, well, this is what I was thinking. Thank God I didn't say it.
Yeah.
And so you realize that that person could have voiced out his or her view also. But because of the groupthink being created out of X, then that's not possible anymore. So you have to understand what the platform was for. X was set up for something simple. It's a town square. So it's engineered to generate group thinking.
Oh, okay. That makes
Do you get
sense.
it? That's what Jack Dorsey said. He said he wanted to create a public town square. Do you get it? And so if you use X, you should know what you are signing on for. All right? Because sometimes something is on X trending and Facebook, they are discussing something completely different. Even when 3 days later, the topic eventually gets to Facebook, the views will be different. You would see somebody's post on X, read the comments, so much vitriol, go to Facebook, completely different. So, like I said initially, the medium is the message, and it matters a lot. And so, I can't ask everybody to really be as educated about the platforms. But for those who are really interested, understanding what platforms you are using will help you know how best you can mediate the information you are getting.
But is this a requirement we should start placing on corporations, like those who create these media platforms? Because
what's the incentive? Because
it's more like states eventually have to deal with the consequences of this. And you can't help...
Not government, states.
Yes, because obviously the government, if there's a damages created, even if you change governments, the state perpetually deals with it. So if you have situations where you see the damage unfolding, is it not cause for alarm to say, look, this is where we see ourselves at in a few years? You need to start making people aware of exactly what they are interacting with, because personally, for me, without you saying this, I didn't even understand exactly, or haven't sat to think about
the algorithms.
What different purposes social media platforms are created for to inform my engagement of them. So I know that if I enter X, it's a town square, so I should be expecting to hear very similar opinions, but then if I have a dissenting opinion, I shouldn't be alarmed by it. Right? So if states can see that unfolding consequence, I think that should be enough justification to say, look, start educating people about exactly what platforms are for what and the purposes with which you created them.
Education is good, because trusting states with so much power is, it's a problem. Because the states will not know when to stop. The states will not know when to stop. And so that's actually the challenge with, social media and regulation. Even in the US, I remember when Zuckerberg faced the Senate committee, and a congressman was asking him about how to Google stuff. He's so old, he cannot interact with the system. And trust me, if you are to even get Elon Musk to sit in front of our parliament to justify X and its methods, the questions will be very useless. Because those who have the power, so they will end up going for the Buhari option. Ban, the platform.
Ban social media.
Ban social media. That's the option that he's going to go for. But I think, one, we should go back to really, and that's why the EU sanctions on mask is very important. If we want to know what we can trust, it should be free for people to know who is speaking. That is why you cannot charge people to be verified on the social media platform, because then we can never be sure who is speaking. Do you get it? Currently on X, because I'm not verified, you are not sure whether the account is mine or it is you speaking in my stead. And alternatively, you can go and pay for my name, get verified, and use it. You understand it? So that's a problem. So we should start from there. If we want to make the internet a right, a universal right in the future, then verification should be a right for everybody. It should not be in the hands of one person who gives it to who he wants. No, I mean, before in Ghana, it was very difficult to know how to become, verified.
This
At
conversation.
least now, that's a different conversation. That's a different conversation. So that's somewhere to start from. The other part that we should also be looking at is, in terms of the education, there are some, like, data gathering is very important. So people should know what they are giving out. Simple things. A lot of people get satisfied when they are on the internet because they accept all cookies. So you're on a platform, you see, accept all cookies, then you just accept. Meanwhile, if people knew, they'll probably manage their cookies, and go and determine what they want to give out. You get it? So people need to know that these options exist. The fact that you're on the internet, it doesn't force you to be in all these things. And that's why all the issues around TikTok, especially in the US, is very important, because they realize that through social media, the mindset of an entire generation is being shaped. But at the same time, the Chinese who own the platform, their TikTok is completely different from what Ghanaians and Americans have access to. I would have said what is on both, but I mean, I'm sure people get it, And that's why even in this US election, you see over the past week, Silicon Valley has shifted towards Donald Trump. Because he's assured them he's going to ban TikTok. That's one part of it. A lot of things that is going to help cryptocurrencies grow is going to, but you are going to see a lot more donations moving to Trump over the coming weeks
because of those positions.
And so in Ghana, we don't even know who donates to a politician.
We don't even have those conversations to begin with.
We are not interested. We are not interested in those conversations. We don't even know which journalists a journalist, so that's why you hear, a journalist's wife is on government scholarship. We don't know what led to that, And so all those things are important. But with respect to social media, for me, it should start from verification, and then the education of what the internet holds for you. And that's why I say sometimes politicians underestimate social media at their own risk. So you see tweets or posts like, you'll be here, the job day grounds. But to be honest, so many Ghanaians have access to TikTok now, Facebook Reels, YouTube Reels. You shouldn't underestimate what these people are learning over there.
These days, think that they don't see, and in 30 minutes you have 300 views. People are just watching and commenting. I mean,
aside the bots, there are people who are in rural communities who are watching these videos. When they sit down, they will laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh.
That's very true.
But those people don't care about Kwame Sefakan's opinion. They care about
Kojo
Sheldon, headless YouTuber, what they say about the issues. And I think Karim once said that influencers are the philosophers of this century.
That's true, actually.
And if you look at the fact that a lot of people are learning from them, you cannot, have any other opinion.
Very interesting views there. One final bit of the conversation is how terrible the media can be when it comes to verifying information and stories. And I want to put this into perspective with two happenings in recent times. One is the famous Chef Smith issue where a host of media houses were assembled, they were informed, they came to publish the story, and then 24 hours later they realized that it was all a lie because some media houses now started, or someone started making the noise, this is not true, there are falsehoods in the certification and all that. And I think another thing that alarmed me was the reports we saw on the Kenya issue, the Kenya protests. I was so infuriated by a lot of the media reporting I saw here in Ghana because it was never a detailed analysis of what was happening. It was more of, yeah, Kenya is protesting, so Ghana, yes. The next thing we'll see, you there be joking with the youth. And it's such a terrible way of reporting.
Yep.
And you look at that and you are questioning, even if we are to think that these people have so much power, as you've described, and maybe it eludes them how much power they have, the fact that they could tell us things that are completely false and could also misinform us to a very significant degree, how are we going to solve it? Because unless someone comes out, for me, for instance, I was obviously never going to text Guinness World Records to find out whether shares made certifications and lie, so far as major media houses have reported it. And so if we don't have the habit of doing that, and we have the habit of trusting them, and they are sometimes doing such a shitty job that causes us to be alarmed, how do we interact with them in a meaningful way? Or let me
that's
how do we interact with them in a safe way for ourselves?
That's where traditional media used to be, very important. Because before a story is on the news, it goes through so many people, right, asking the important questions. But now, traditional media are also in a hurry to compete with social media. They are in a hurry to compete with Obi Rash, Ralph Arthur, Saltwood, Salt Pond Tiger Woods. Because Salt Pond Tiger Woods does not have any editor. He's his own judge, jury, and executioner. And trust me, when he sees that Chef Smith is going to do this, it will take 30 seconds for him to put it out there. TV3 does not have that opportunity. And so, in a bid to also be fast, that's why these safeguards have been thrown away. And so, I think it's also about target marketing. They should understand traditional media, this advice to them. It's better for them to understand the market that they serve and know that trust is what makes them valuable. Right? And that trust is lost because no matter what Salt Pond Tiger Wood does, all right, people will still ask, has TV3 posted it?
That's true.
Has Metro TV posted it? If these media houses have not posted it, people are still going to be in doubt. So they should make social media chase them rather than chasing social media. All right. And then the second thing is, the safeguards also are a threat. The safeguards can also be a threat. Because like we said, people can then mediate what becomes information that you deserve to hear. All right. But in terms of misinformation, and this is where I have a quandary. Vaccine issues. The media organization can legitimately put out information about the harms of vaccines, taking vaccines. But that information
would drive people away from us coming together to vaccinate to deal with a virus like COVID. You get it? So that's why the media's role is never black and white. That's why a degree of freedom is very important. But while that degree of freedom is very important, then we should still be able to ensure that they know their trust comes from accuracy. Right? Their trust comes from accuracy. The third bit is the difficulty in picking out what is important and technical. So you're talking about the Kenya situation. It is easier to just ask, so what about Ghana? Than to analyze the ethnic underpinnings of Kenya's politics. That means that at any point in time, regardless of the government in power, there will be major ethnic groups that will still be against the government. Because a lot of the elections are backed by ethnic votes. Right? And so you can't even tell that the president is so unpopular just based on agitations or protests. Do you get it? Or even for the political decision to remove all ministers. It could be a deliberate ploy to do
in-house cleaning of your own cabinet and opponents.
Yeah.
Right? So there should be deeper meanings into these things. People should be able to read further to be able to understand these things. But like I said, if they can't afford it, a lot of times the training, then how do they get all these wonderful people? That's why a lot of the media houses, they have 1 or 2 smart people who are, experts on everything.
Very true.
Very true. See, there are journalists who are medical experts, agric experts, economists,
politics,
law, everything.
Yeah.
And there are some too who are everything is a nail, and all they have is a hammer. So everything, maybe every issue, maybe they are doctors. Every issue, they are going to bring the medical angle. So LI, medical angle. Snit Hotels, medical angle. It could be that the person is a lawyer.
Yeah.
Law,
legal
issue, legal angle. So we just have to have diverse voices at the end of the day to check each other, to be able to know these things. And the thing that ends up happening is, so in Plato's cave, one of the prisoners eventually gets to leave the cave, right? And he sees that, this cave, what I thought was the reality was not it.
Yeah.
So now he's enlightened. And because he's left the cave, his eyes can adjust to the light and all that. So he goes back in to try to get the people out. But because he's struggling to adjust to the darkness now, the people think outside there is a problem. Yeah. And so that's why now it seems like even when you have an opinion that may end up being smarter, you are in the minority.
Yeah.
And so everybody just ends up joining the crazy gang.
I mean, one final question though. There seems to be a long-standing narrative that the Ghanaian people are not smart or intellectual enough. Therefore, we don't buy into complex media, right? And so because we don't buy into complex media, it's fine if media houses do the bare minimum and just quote-unquote sensationalize stuff for us, and then we would listen to those. But the question is, seems to me also that we need to recognize that we've moved along when it comes to the elitism in terms of intellectual elite within the state. That we've grown, we've become educated. There are generations of people who can now critically think for themselves. And there are a lot of us who want to listen to like very good intellectual podcasts, very good intellectual media, and we have to resort to foreign media because you look at the local media and you start listening and 2 minutes in you are bored and you have to zoom out. Is it a case that there is a lack of recognition of the citizens' landscape changing that is also influencing the reluctance for the media to shift? Because as you are saying, maybe they don't have the money, but if they also recognize that there is a market for it, they would invest to shift that landscape.
Yes. Both points are true. We are more literate now.
Yeah.
We are more literate now. But probably in your other conversations on decolonization, you would get into even how education itself must be decolonized.
Yeah,
I was telling my friends a couple of days back about something that, it's a minor observation, but it speaks to a lot of things. So, for example, the Americans never say that, like the date Americans celebrate independence is the day they declared that they are independent.
Not the day colonial
They declared their independence and fought the revolution war after that.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
We believe the British gave us independence. It will forever influence our perception of who we are as an independent nation.
Yeah.
And our independence itself, we'll forever see it as a gift that was bestowed upon us.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Even in terms of how much we are willing to use violence.
Yeah.
If you look at the countries that young people protest a lot, you should look at their history, how they arrived at independence.
Yeah.
A lot of them fought for it.
Yeah.
Like they fought, like years, decades.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have that. Right? True. We played good boys. We had one unconcerned riot because the riot really didn't have to do with independence in 1948.
Yeah.
Some political leaders took advantage of the situation. The British overreacted and they put us on the path to our independence.
Yeah.
And so something as small as that, regardless of how educated you are, if you still hold that thought from your class 3 social studies book, chances are you will not be interested in the conversations that can shape complex political thoughts. And so we have passed the literacy stage of our education. We have to now go beyond it. So those who say that, oh, Ghanaians may not have reached there, may have a point, but I don't think they understand it in this way about our education. They probably still think that people who don't speak English are not educated or intelligent enough to understand the issues, but that is not the case. Some people who may not speak a word of English are more politically conscious than PhD holders.
That's very true.
Do you get? Because the political consciousness does not come from
language.
The language, of course, language is part of helping us understand and demystify certain things. But there are experiences that we have that the English language itself cannot capture.
That's true.
And therefore, it's taken from our political experience. So that is part of it. But the education must be more thorough, decolonized, expanded to cover more issues, and people should understand the national picture. Then the other thing is, whether we like it or not, we are within these borders. We are within these borders. I don't think we've had a conversation enough about forging nationhood. And so what a lot of people look out for in terms of politics and its dividends are things that will benefit them or their ethnic group. And so, for example, if something is free and is going to benefit them, that is enough. Whether it affects another group of people and what they can get, they don't care. Some people, they have ethnic champions. So they are not looking for leaders who change the country for everybody. They are looking for a champion who push things for them or represent their interests, which may be fair. But once we are in a nation and we are forging that nation, we have to look beyond those things. And that's probably one reason why the Fourth Republican Constitution has survived for so long, because it is a master at distributing to interest groups. Do you get it? It's when it comes to a document that distributes to interest groups to make sure that every power. I'm not saying everyone, because obviously Ralph is not happy. Every group or every power,
every power that
be is happy to an extent to keep this arrangement together. They have it, but we still have to reimagine a lot of these conversations and all that. So of course the media, there's a lot of work, but it goes beyond just media saying we are going to do the right thing. If we are not asking them to sing our greatest hits, they would not be singing them.
That's very interesting. I mean, every conversation with you, to some extent, sounds like reading an educative book. You tend to share a lot of interesting things. I think this has been one of them as well. Like, really, really nice having this chat with you, BNI.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been a really good conversation. I mean, he shared so many thoughts. I hope you also got to listen. Leave your comments, share your thoughts on some of the most topical issues, social media, the group thing that exists there, the fact that we've spoken about algorithms and how influential they are on our thoughts. Also, the mainstream media, are they chasing social media? How bad is it? And how much are they degrading their own pre-existing standards just to fight the landscape with social media and try to beat them to the chase? It's been a nice conversation again on the Shaft Conversations with Boakye Isaac. Thank you all for listening, and see you on the next one.